Republican Congressman Steve King, a member of the Tea Party caucus. Congressman, thank you so much for your time yet again. What do you think of this deal?
Glad to. Well, this deal moves it just a little bit. It's not a lot different than the original of the Boehner bill that passed 218 to 210 last week. And so I'm likely to end up in the same place I did, which was no. I do tip my hat to the intense negotiations that have taken place and the effort to move the ball down the field in the right direction. I'm standing on this principle of cut, cap, and balance. I want to see a balanced budget come to us, and it's a responsibility that Congress has to send that off to the states. I've come to a conclusion that the people on the other side of the aisle, for me, never want to see a balanced budget amendment, and neither do they want to balance the budget. And I want to push this thing as hard as I can to bring it to the conclusion which side people are on and what they're willing to do. It's not enough cuts in the short term for me.
Let me ask you about your no vote that you are planning. Is this a backhanded compliment, if you will, to the Speaker? On one hand, you're saying you compliment the work done, but you come around the corner with a no there. Was he ineffective in convincing you and other members of the caucus who might vote no?
The Speaker, and coupled with the votes that will come from the Democrat side, have to find that sweet spot, if you will, where there are 218 votes. And he did that with his bill last Friday, and I expect that's what's most likely to happen under this scenario here. But just envision this, that if we all just all of a sudden join hands and sing Kumbaya, we will have conceded the position that's gotten us to this point. And if I and many others hadn't stood on this principle of cut, cap, and balance on fiscal responsibility, on doing short-term cuts so that it's meaningful in the time that we can actually affect it, we wouldn't have this discussion. So that's one of the reasons that I compliment the effort, but we have to find this place to get America again, where it needs to go in the long term.
Congressman, I have to point out the fact that you say, come around in this kumbaya, as you refer to it, which obviously by many would not be seen as a pleasant way of describing. What about just calling it a compromise here? I mean, you have your Speaker saying that this deal is all about cuts. Why not see it as a compromise as opposed to something that I assume that you meant in a flippant way by saying a kumbaya coming around in a circle moment? Isn't this compromise?
Well, let me say that the cuts are $7 billion in budget authority for 2012 compared to the Ryan budget, which is $31 billion in budget authority for 2012. That doesn't even meet the Ryan budget, which is 26 years before it balances. So no one yet knows when this balances, and no one has a number at this point as to what the national debt will be 10 years from now. I'm going to tell you, I think it ends up in the $23 to $24 trillion category 10 years from now. Those are all reasons that one needs to stand on this principle and say we need to do more than we're doing today.
Let me ask you also, our first read team points out that this debate or this deal should put to bed this argument that the president is a big government socialist. When you look at the amount of cuts in domestic programs that we're seeing here, does that put this moniker to bed that we often hear from members of the Tea Party?
Well, it doesn't for me. I've listened to the president speak, and he told us on February 10th of 2009 before the Republican conference that he believed Franklin Delano Roosevelt's mistake was he lost his nerve and didn't spend enough money during the Great Depression. And he convinced me that he wouldn't back off on spending. Just within the last week or so, they've floated the idea of another economic stimulus plan. I think we have to recover from the Obama economics, and that's part of this debate that's going on. But the president wanted to increase taxes. He didn't want to decrease spending. He wanted a clean debt ceiling increase of $2.4 trillion.
But he's agreed to historic spending cuts. This is the best deal he can probably get right now. Does he get no credit for what's been called historic spending cuts here now?
I think the president's the only one that really knows that answer, and that is, where would the president actually blink? What was he willing to face? And the rhetoric has been amped up so high about this idea of default. Default would be if the United States government didn't service its debt, and that just takes the first dime on each dollar that's currently coming in.
Congressman King, thank you so much for joining me yet again. We greatly